Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're back with some more Total War Warhammer 3 gameplay. As usual, a little disclaimer before we actually begin. Everything you're seeing on screen was recorded by a Creative Assembly staff member, and anything such as stats and so on could be subject to change, so this is still considered development in progress. I'm getting sick of saying that over and over, but with all that being said, what we're seeing here is a defensive siege battle, minor settlement, for the Ogre Kingdoms versus the forces of Khorne. Originally we've shown this battle off with Grand Cafe attacking where they had range and magic, but this should be very different considering that, well, Khorne has nothing of that. So what we can see here is that Khorne's forces has been split up into 3 different groups, where in the original they split up the Grand Cafe into 4. Of course this is just the AI, but we've got a large Khornate force and 2 smaller ones, so the player's obviously trying to build up his forces and make sure that he can meet them with a decent amount of power. Khorne's forces are focused on melee and they get stronger as they kill more and more, so this is going to be fairly interesting as the Ogres obviously don't have a lot of units. The actual Ogre units themselves obviously have a small model count and the higher ones are just Noblar units, and there's a decent amount of spread in regards to all the different units. We can see a lot of different Ogres, a few Gorgas, some different Noblars, and a lot of cavalry for, well, a settlement battle. I wouldn't use so many myself, but then again, there's no walls here, you are just defending natural crevices and all that different stuff. It should be an interesting fight as obviously the Ogres do have some range, but the majority of the Ogre force is also melee, so very melee on melee. This should be a cool fight. Hopefully we get some cool cinematic shots. It really depends on what the player did. The player's obviously taking his time, trying to just make sure that he can counter as much as possible. There's a lot of different entrances to where the Khorne forces can come and swarm through, and you have to be prepared for everything, making sure that everything has been held off. There is just so much when it comes to the settlement. It's a great map because there's so many different options. As an attacker, you're going to be spoiled for choice. As a defender, you're going to have to keep an eye as to where your enemy is deploying to be able to counter them and not lose all your forces. One weak point could basically spell the end of the battle for you if you're not doing things correctly, and obviously it does depend. Keep in mind also that the Total War AI is very strange, and they could just split up without knowing, or just move around in a nonsensical way. It's happened in pretty much every single Total War game since the very beginning. The large majority of the Ogre roster is obviously going to meet up with the large majority of the Khornate roster, which does make sense, and the Ogre area is kind of scrunched up, so you're going to have to put a lot of units in one location, which can slow them down. That being said, it's not a bad idea. I think that everything which is more the dangerous stuff might be at the bottom part of the map, so if you can meet it quick, it's always the best way to go. But a lot of stuff is being put into the southern part, and it could be that the other areas might be as less defended, so some areas might falter. We're going to have to wait and see. We've seen the battle already start, and obviously the Khornate forces are going to be moving forward. We've obviously got the Ogres trying to pepper, they've got some lead belchers and so on, which is going to be able to do some damage, but we're already seeing the Khornate forces split up a little bit, where the 2 Bloodthirsters have actually moved a bit more to the right, and a large amount of units is moving there too. It's fairly smart for Total War AI. I must admit that it was actually quite surprising. They've met up with a large amount of enemies, but obviously Bloodthirsters are built to do damage, and the supporting units that will come will also want to do that too. I mean, Khornate forces, as we've explained, get a little stronger as they do more damage, so you want to be able to hit them as hard as possible. It's quite surprising, though some issues are where the Khornate forces kind of scrunch up a lot, which is good for you to cast spells. The Ogres don't really have that much magic, so it's not going to do too much, and obviously Khorne is a little bit resistant, but we're already seeing the Khornate forces come in, do damage, and just start hacking away, which is obviously quite good. Skrag himself is in the forefront of it, and the other areas are already starting to feel some pain too. The other areas themselves are focused on Noblars, and those should not last that long. I believe all the Noblars in one location, so eventually they will break. The other section too is already pushing in, but taking heavy damage. I think that's exactly where the lead belches were. The fact is that damage itself has to be done in certain ways. They're moving certain units back. There's a lot of scrunching up, and the player's holding out quite well, all things considered. Keep in mind that obviously AI, again, not smart, but it is pushing and it's doing damage. You can see here that some Gorgas have been lost. Units of bulls are pretty much getting destroyed. We can see lead belches starting to break. And yeah, there's a bit of an issue with, say, for example, the Bloodthirsters. This is a massive issue with the AI, where they'll throw big flying monsters right at the front, right before anything else comes, which makes them very vulnerable. So the two Bloodthirsters themselves, the Monster and the Lord choice, are pretty much almost dead. And once the Lord goes down, we're going to start seeing a lot of leadership issues with the Khorne forces. This is kind of disappointing. It's something that, well, the AI doesn't know how to handle too well, and hopefully Creative Assembly can fiddle around with it and find a fix. It's just very strange as to why this is done a lot. It's always with the flying monsters, though. You'll see that in Warhammer 2, any flying monsters will normally charge on ahead, and everything else is just so far behind that there's not a lot of support there. We're seeing some big spells being casted, which obviously you want to do. Despite the fact that Khorne will be resistant to some spells, you'll still be able to get some damage out of it, and that's the main brunt of the force. If you can get rid of that, you've pretty much won the game at this point, as all the other forces will be able to go back and support. Skrag and everyone else has been able to do quite a lot of damage, and yes, the Ogres are losing big numbers, which is quite surprising. But the Khorne forces are possibly losing more. Like I said, the Lord choice is the big point here. If they can get rid of that, then it becomes a lot easier, and some of the low leadership units at the moment for Khorne will start to crumble, so this has to be played well. Now, we can see that the fighting is going from all sides. This is going to be cool for a player point of view, being able to fight in multiple fronts and so on. The AI does struggle, though it would be nice to see this in different perspectives. Things would have probably been a lot more different if, say, for example, the Lord Bloodthirster, we don't know if the AI can do this or not, but if the Lord would have been on foot, moving up with his army, he would not be doing as much damage, because obviously he flew in very quick and was able to hold down an enemy, but he possibly wouldn't be taken out so quickly, because, yeah, they're not doing so well. None of the Bloodthirsters are doing well at the moment. From all the battles showcased, this is a common reoccurring thing. We've seen this with Khorne, and we've obviously seen this with the Tzeentch battles too, where a Lord of Change, both Monster and Lord, will kind of overextend itself and find itself being picked out very easily. We've seen that the balance of power itself isn't really changing much, because damage is being done pretty equally in both sides. The fact is that we keep seeing Ogres die, and a lot of units have pretty much been almost cleanly wiped off, because they're dealing with an army which is there to be able to fight in melee combat. It's actually designed for them to get into melee and be able to do as much damage as possible, and it is really surprising to be able to see such a high damage output from Khorne versus the Ogres, as obviously, yes, the Ogres are still supposed to be quite strong, and even with the Bloodthirsters practically out of commission at the moment, as they're just pretty much flying about as far as I've seen, the other stuff like the Bloodletters, the Skull Crushers, and so on, they're pushing and pushing and pushing, which is really surprising. There's even some cases where obviously the players had to fall back, and yeah, that's actually quite impressive, as even still, you wouldn't really be expecting so much from the Total War AI to be, well, this competent. The fact that I'm even complimenting Total War AI is something that I never imagined I'd actually do. The grand majority of the Ogre force is pretty much almost demolished. The cavalry is like the only thing that's standing at the moment. Most of the Noblars are gone, most of the standard bulls are gone, even the Gorgas are pretty much gone. The Stonehorn is almost dead. Skrag and the Firebelly, the two hero choices, are even pretty low when it comes to HP. It's surprising, and we're seeing more and more pushing from Khorne from other sides. I do believe that in some other locations they were pushing up. They did have the hero moving up and doing as much damage as possible, and I think they still have, they still have a Skull Cannon in commission. I'm not sure if they brought two, but this is still pretty cool to see the AI pushing heavily. It's one of the very rare circumstances, and I doubt that we'll see this again throughout all 7 videos today, that we're actually going to get such competent AI. Yes, it's not gold standard and it's not perfect, but they're still able to do stuff. Forcing the player back to the middle has been quite impressive. Now, mind you, the player has not been playing as a professional and stuff like that. Like, say, for example, if this was Legend of Total War, the battle would have gone in a lot of a different style, but still, this was cool. This, so far, has been cool to see, and it's showcased a lot more capabilities and a lot more bloodshed, which, you know, blood for the blood god. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to let the rest of the battle footage play off. You can hear the official gameplay, the sound, and so on, and get a better grasp of what's going on. Let me know what you think about this battle. The AI seems a bit better here. I'm not expecting it for the rest of the game to be like this, but it does sound cool. I wish that Creative Assembly could make a smarter AI, but that's just my personal opinion. You never know what's in the future, as of course this is still a game in development.
Warhammer cavalry! Lead belchers! Here we go! Guts out, boys! Good plan! Biggest in the tribe! Crush hands! They're dead! The more calls! Here we go!
Go again!
Strike the slaughterer!
Help destroy!
Hungry! Reckon so! Man, a pistol! Here we go! Wind supper! Eat 'em! Crushers! Ogres attack! Hungry! Cavalry! Strike the slaughterer! The more calls! Crushers! Cavalry! Master of the meat pot! Chop and tear!
But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Ogre for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.